So this is an overview of the new Beautiful Financial Plan stock option worksheet. So I'll walk through the information as far as just all that you need to input into here, and then as we go along, the different visuals that come up and the different things that it's going to be doing, because this does a lot more heavy lifting than a lot of the other worksheets up to this point. So first, whenever I have just a quick summary of just the different steps of what you would actually enter. And so first, you enter the ticker symbol. So we're going to say that we have some Tesla stock options, and so that's going to pull in the company name, and it's going to pull in the current stock price as well. And then you put in just the basic grant summary information, and so you can name it whatever you want, but most option grants have a name to it. And so we're going to say that we have some incentive stock options with a $40 strike price that were granted to us at the beginning of 2020. Okay. And then the next part is populating the vesting schedule, so the details of this particular grant. And so that goes into this other tab. And then so first in this drop down, it's going to pull from the values that are in that grant summary. And so make sure that the grant ID matches up. And then we add in just the vesting date and the number of shares that are vesting. So once that's done, then just doing a quick review of what it will do is it figures out, based on all of that, the how many shares total there are in the grant, how many of them are vested, what the current value of the vested shares are, and then also the unvested shares there. And then here's another breakdown of all of them. Currently, whenever there's only one award, then the information looks pretty similar, but as you get more awards, then it'll break down the value of each grant. And then this is showing the potential value of the vested options. And so based on the current stock price, that will be in the middle. And then you can say what increments you want to see. And so if I change this to we'll say 10% increments. So this is going to say if from 212, if it goes up 10%, then that goes to $233.20. And then in parentheses, it shows how much the value of the option has gone up. And so this will show both on the upside and then also on the downside as it goes down in 10% increments, what the value of the option does. So now that we have just the grant summary information and then the vesting schedule in there, and then let's start working through what happens whenever you actually exercise some of these options. And so first on the exercise page, you say what grant you're going to be exercising from and say the date that you're going to do your exercise. It will pull in the number of shares that you can exercise, so up to 3,000. So here we're going to say, let's say we're going to exercise 2,000 of them. And then we say what the fair market value is on the date that we're going to do the exercise. Once you fill that information out, then what it is doing is it figures out the cost to exercise that number of shares, and then also from a tax perspective, what the bargain element is that we just created based on the fair market value. So it's the spread between the fair market value and the exercise price times the number of shares exercised. So going back to some of the other visuals, so now that we have exercise and we're holding some shares, then the value of that shows up here. Also in this visual, it shows that we have an exercise here and it shows the value there as well. And one thing you're able to do in this last tab is if you have an active exercise, then you can select it inside of this drop down here. And what this is going to do is it's going to show a visual of the after-tax value of that exercise. And so here you can illustrate the jump in the potential tax savings whenever the exercise ISO becomes a qualifying disposition. And so it goes from being taxed as ordinary income, short-term capital gains, to long-term capital gains instead. And lastly, we'll go ahead and do a sale of some of those exercise shares. And so this will pull from the drop down of the exercises that have been done. And so we say it has the grant ID and then the date that it was exercised on. And so here it shows that there's still 2,000 shares that can be sold. And so let's say that we're going to sell half of them on the same day that we're exercising them. Okay. So now that we've done that, then it updates this to show that we like to show the amount that has been exercised and sold. So what has been fully taken off the table, what is still held within the shares, and then the vested but unexercised stock or options there too. And then lastly, this tab shows the tax information. So whenever we have exercised some and then we've sold some of them, then it figures out based on all of that how much ordinary income has been realized, if there were any capital gains that were realized, and then how much AMT bargain element is still remaining that is getting carried over into the next year. Okay, so just to finish up some of the functionality, let's go ahead and visualize what would happen if we would if we would sell the remaining shares that were exercised in the next year. Okay, so after we do that, then from a tax perspective, what it is keeping track of is it knows that the remaining shares were sold as a qualifying disposition, and so it counts that under the long-term capital gains, and then also from the AMT calculation perspective, it's keeping track of the AMT long-term capital gains, and then any adjustment that was made by selling those qualifying ISOs. Okay, so that's a very quick overview of the functionality that's within here. Hopefully this helps, and feedback is always welcome. Thanks.